Hello everyone, welcome to an Empower PL video tutorial. My name is Monica Martinez, and in this particular video, we are creating holiday photos or holiday graphics with Google Slides. And as you can see from the example on my screen, we're going to be creating these different holiday graphics with our own photos. So I just brought in some holiday photos with some of my friends and family. Here's my friend Kevin. Here's another one that is my cousin slash colleague and his daughter here in this picture. So you're going to, of course, be able to bring in your own pictures and be able to create these holiday graphics. This is great for doing an activity with staff, with your students if you're an educator and you're doing something with your kiddos. This is going to be really fun because they get to really play with all the templates and really even mix and match as much as they'd like to create whatever it is that they're wanting to create. So let's dive in. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this first image to go ahead and pull up. This is the end result of what I created for this one. But what you're going to get in the template really are just the graphics. You're obviously not going to get my pictures, but you're going to get these graphics, and these are actually separate graphics. They're not actually together. It's not one image. And what's nice about that is that you then get to order these in front or back and, kind of reorganize them however you want. But of course, with the intention of sliding the picture, in this case, behind the hollies that you see on here. If you don't, when you bring in your photo, when you get the template and you bring your photo in, it's going to be at the very top layer because you've just brought it in. So this is what's going to happen, which is what you see here on the screen. It's going to be on top of everything. And so what you need to do first, of course, is going to be size your photo to the size that you need. And then you can start to reorganize these items. So you want to bring your photo over into what I'm going to call your artboard, right? This is our canvas area. So you want to bring it in and then start to size it. Now, to make sure that you don't stretch your photo, because if you stretch it and go out like I'm doing here, we're just going to look really weird. So never grab it from the center sections of the photo, but instead, you should always grab from the corners. The corners is going to help you keep the dimension of the picture to stay intact. So I'm going to grab it from the corner there, and I'm just going to pull it out to the very, very bottom of my canvas. So you can see I lined it up with the bottom here. Obviously, I'm going to have to crop this because we don't want to go off the artboard. We want it to sit perfectly, or at least that's my intent, is to have it sit perfectly. So by double clicking, I get these handlebars on the corners here. And I really don't want to bring it in from the corner because I do want it to keep the height. I just want to crop the width. So I'm going to grab that handlebar from the end there and then just bring it right in. You can also, at this point, if you decided it doesn't really seem all that centered, I clearly am leaving more of me as opposed to my friend Kevin here. So using my arrow keys while I'm still in this selection, you can see the bounding box and then the crop marks on the inside. So while this is still selected in this way, I can use my arrow keys to move the image over a bit so that both of us are coming out a little more centered. So I can do that there, and then hit the enter button on your computer so that it basically crops it the way that you're intending to crop it. So we still just have that one last step. So I'm going to hit enter. And now my picture is cropped. Now, obviously, in this case, it's good to go, but I want to bring the holly forward. So one last thing I'm going to do here to make sure this is placed properly is I'm going to right-click over the image, and I'm going to say center on page horizontally, and then go back in and center on page vertically. Okay, you see it slightly moved there because it wasn't quite in place. So to get my hollies, either I can try selecting it. I can see a little bit right back here. So I can try and click it that way. If it doesn't let me, I'm going to have to move my photo over just a little bit and then come back and get it. But let's see. No, see that grabbed. There we go. Now we grabbed it. So you can try and get really close to do that. So what I'm going to do is say order and then bring to front, and that's going to bring my hollies all the way to the front so it sits on top of my photo. And voila, already we are creating a pretty cool little graphic there. So we've got our background, we've got our holly, and then we've got our picture in the foreground. Now I can select these items again. Like let's say I wasn't able to, I would have to select them, move them out of my way to be able to get to the bottom object to then do what I need to do. So that's one way to do it. Or you can send it to the back, adjust your photo, and then bring it back to the front. So there's multiple ways to certainly do that. But I want to show you one additional thing here. So let me just reposition this the way that I want it. So I think I want it just right there. Okay, so I have two items I want to select here. So I want to get the holly and the pictures. So I can click and drag from the outside in, just making sure I don't go too far in because I don't want to get my background here. But just grabbing those two items, and then I can actually shrink that down so that part of my background, which as you can see is supposed to be like a little wooden frame or wooden back there, would show up in my picture. So you could certainly do that if you wanted to give it kind of a different effect. As you can see in the first one that I designed, I didn't do that, but in this one that we're doing here, I am actually doing that. And by the way, since we're scaling these two items, I'm going to bring them over to the left because what I want to do is make sure that I don't grab this this other graphic that's there. So once again, I'm going to click and drag from the outside in, grab those two items, right click, because this time what I want to do is group those items so that I can move them together and not have to worry about the order in which they're in and not being, not grabbing one thing or another because they're sitting on top of each other. So I'm going to group them. And now that they're grouped, anytime I select the one, it's going to grab both of them. Okay, so now as I bring it back onto my my canvas here, what I want to do is make sure that it is centered both horizontally and vertically. So once again, I'm going to right click over that graphic, center on page, horizontal. Once again, right click, center on page, vertical, and voila, there it is. And now I can even grab it from the corner to be able to scale this. And I want to show you one additional tip here as you're scaling, because I've just finished centering this. And if I just grab it from the corner, I'm going to have to recenter. But that actually, there's a little tip here. If you hold your Shift and Alt key button down, and then with your mouse, grab the corner and then pull it out towards the edges. Notice that it's scaling it all together and it remains in the center. So it didn't mess it up, because if you just grab it from the corner and do this, you're gonna have to recenter, right? So instead of doing that, we're holding our Shift and Alt key button down and then pulling it from the corner, and it basically will grab both. Now, for whatever reason, there we go. Okay. All right. So you can decide how much of the wooden background you want to show, if you're scaling that down, etc. So give that a try, play around with it and see what you might want to do there. Now, the other thing that you see that I've done here is I added a red box that's there behind the holly, and then I added text on top of that. But we'll talk about some of those features here in just a little bit. So that's just one idea there I wanted to share with you. I'm going to hop over to another one. So I really like this one as well. It's this whitewashed wooden back with, all this fun stuff on top of it. So I wanted to share with you that, you could do a lot of cool things with it. You could definitely bring in some group shots, and this would be really fun to do with coworkers, especially now, to be able to share the love with your coworkers and, perhaps things you've done together and so forth. So I've brought in my picture, but as you can see, I wanted to scale it up a little bit. And now it covered some of my graphics that are behind it. So I'm going to select my graphics, which is what is currently there. So I'm going to select that box and I'm going to right click. I'm going to say order and then bring to front, and voila. Now we have like this really cool looking graphic. It looks like, it's just these graphics on top of my image, and that was it. And it was that simple to do that. Let me undo that. move that picture out of the way. The other thing you can do with this one that's pretty cool is here I am with my friend Ken, and I've got two different pictures. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one on top of the other. And let me go back and undo and bring this one to the front, because sometimes you might not have the perfect size photo. And that's the case here. Like, I want to, create this graphic with my friend Ken, but I didn't have the perfect size to cover the whole thing the way this image did. So instead, what I did is I brought two different images in, and this one in the back here, as you can see, is not the same size. And so I'm going to double click the one in the back and then crop that in. And as you can see, my other friend was in there too. But because this picture is with just Ken and I can manipulate those by simply cropping. So now I'm going to move it over and move this one over. So the reason why I did that was because I wanted to crop them and make them exactly the same dimension. So that I can then, I'm going to shrink it down, just grabbing it from the corner, and then rotating it by grabbing that little option here, right up here at the top. That little dot allows you to rotate your picture. So now I'm going to grab this one and do the same thing, shrink it down, bring it in here, and slightly rotate it. So what I'm doing is kind of like more of a scrapbook kind of look, as you can see. And then what I'll do once I do that is, you could obviously create little shapes that would look like, the little tabs at the corners to hold pictures in. You can also just simply add on the image itself. You can come up here to the weight, the border weight, add a point here, change it to whatever color you'd like. I'm going to leave it at black. And that's going to create sort of like this look as if it were framed. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. Let's go in 1 point, and we're going to make it black, and there you go. Now, and from here, you can organize these, send this one to the front, send that one to the back, etc. So again, you want to play around with those options to be able to create really, the graphic and the, with the photo and so forth that you want to create. So definitely play around as much as possible and have some fun there. I do want to show you another thing here. Since we're already on this one and we're working with images, I want to show you format options. So I've selected my photo, and once I do, up here at the top in the menu, format options will appear. If you don't have anything selected, it will not be there. As you can see here, it's blank now. But once you select an image, that option will pop up. So you just have to select something in order to get those options. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to come over here to the right-hand side so you can see. So I've got this picture in the front that's selected. And what I want to do is add a drop shadow to give it that look and feel as if it is stacked on top of another photo. So I want it to be more obvious that that's what's going on. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see. So right now what I'm doing is adjusting the transparency, and I'm going to also adjust the distance so that you can actually see it a little bit more. And see, it's starting to come out. Might be a little hard to see there because of the bounding box, but you can see just a slight little line underneath it. And that might actually be a little too dark. So I want to go a little maybe more transparent there and add a little more distance still. More transparency. All right, so I just wanted to, kind of give it that more realistic kind of look. Let's take a look and see what this looks like so far. So I'm going to click off of it so we can see. And as you can see here, I'm zooming in, and it obviously is distorting as I zoom in, but you get the idea. You can see that little drop shadow underneath that photo. So just kind of gives it that sort of extra little touch that makes it look a little more realistic, which is quite nice. And of course, that's only if you want it to look a little more realistic. All right, so just a couple more to show you other things that you can do. There are lots of different templates in here. My hope is that you guys just jump in and have a lot of fun. Here's another one where we're looking at circular shapes. So you might have a picture that is square, but you need it to be circular. So first I'm going to move this little guy out of my way, and then I'm going to bring my photo over. on top of my graphics here. And what I need to do is crop this as a circle, right? And so right now this is a really more of a rectangle, not really a square. So I'm going to come up here to the top and select my cropping tool, but I'm not just going to click on crop. I'm going to actually click on the little drop-down menu that's right next to it. And from the shapes, I'm going to select the circle shape. Now, when I click on this and it takes effect, it's not going to come through as a circle. It is, in fact, an oval, as it is actually properly labeled. And so what I need to do is double click it so that I get those handlebars that I was telling you about earlier. Because what I need to then do is grab those handlebars and start bringing that in. And as you can see, I am reshaping that oval to look more like a circle. Not quite perfect there. I'm going to grab it over from the right-hand side and bring that in. That's looking a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter so that it takes effect so I can see how it's looking like so far with this graphic that I'm working on. Okay, so it looks like all I need to do really is just scale it down a bit so that it fits really nicely with those lights that are going to then wrap around them. So you can continue to scale and do, kind of get it to where you like it. Of course, the other thing we're going to do, which you've already seen before, is to center on page both horizontally and vertically. It is likely that we're going to have to slightly adjust that because of the image below it. And yes, you can see here, because of the graphic below it, because the line of the lights comes too far down there, I'm going to have to manually adjust that. If I hold my shift key down, you can nudge. When you're not holding your shift and you're using your arrows to move items, it jumps a pixel at a time. But if you hold your shift key down, it is a slight little nudge so that you can fit things perfectly the way you want them to fit. So that's just a sort of a little tip there for you guys to know that if you just hold your shift key down, it'll slightly nudge instead of jumping a whole pixel. So that's something that I do quite often because this won't line up perfectly. As you can see, this isn't perfectly lined up. And it's partly because, I'm going to nudge it over to the left there. It's partly because it's not quite the right size, but this is actually going to work because that line is going to fall right over that image and it'll be fine. So now that I've got my picture in the shape that I want it, I'm going to select my lights back here and I'm going to right click over that and say order, bring to front, because I do want my lights to stack up on top. So as you can see, I still have some adjustments to make. It wasn't quite right. So I'm going to undo, send that back, and then grab my picture and then just bring it in a little bit from this side and center it a little bit more. Okay, all right, I'm gonna grab my lights again, right click, order, bring to front, much better. Obviously, you can tweak this a little more and make it exactly how you want it to look. And then this little guy here, I wanted to spend a little bit of time showing you. This is a graphic, it's not a font. And as you can see, it is now in the back. We need to bring this item, whoops, let's just take it back over to the off the artboard. And what I'm going to do is right click and say order, bring to front, because we want it at the very front. And now I'm going to drag it over my picture. But as you can see, it's not quite popping. I need it to really pop. I can't quite tell what that says because of the colors that are behind the text. So I wanted to show you when you select the item, once again, you'll notice up at the top format options. And this time we're going to go not to the drop shadow just yet, but instead to recolor. You'll notice you have a lot of different options in here that you can select from. So we could make this white color. We can make it maybe a gray, a gold. Okay, so that was the color we had earlier. So you can change these colors to whatever works best, especially given whatever colors you have within the image. Like you want things to really match really well in regards to color. So once you choose what color you want to go with. Let's say that is the color you want to stick to. The other thing in this case that I would do, which we did earlier, is to add a drop shadow to help it really pop. So I'm going to drop this menu down and come in here, and you can choose any color in here that you want. I happen to have this custom color here as well. And once again, I'm going to add a little bit of distance to really help my text stand out. So as you can see, as I was adding more and more distance in that drop shadow, it helps the top color begin to pop a little bit more. Let's try a different color. Black might actually help it stand out a little bit more. There we go. And the other thing you can adjust is the transparency. So if you want less transparency, that's going to help your text in the front really pop. And if that still isn't working, you can try both things. Like now that I've seen that the drop shadow is working really well, I might come back up here and say, well, maybe a lighter color. See, that really pops now more than the other. So play around with those options until you get it right to where you can see it. And of course, if all of that fails and it's still not working out, come up here, grab a shape, and just, add a box, and then fill that with, whatever color you want to go with. Let's get rid of the transparent there. And then this text box, you can say order bring to front. And it's not a text box, it's a graphic. And then you can always adjust this as needed. So if nothing else, if it's not working out, you can always drop a box behind it. Obviously, we need to move it down towards the bottom here, but you get the idea. But I actually think this actually kind of works. The other thing here too on this one is this box right here is actually a graphic. If you didn't like this color, or you wanted to create maybe a layered effect where you could shrink that down a little bit, and then you have kind of like a white border on your picture, which is quite nice. You can change the background color on any one of these slides to anything you want to be able to create the look and feel that you want to create. So feel free to definitely scale your graphics down so that you can actually play around with, other really cool things that you can do. So you can choose any color there. Let's just go with a red since this is Christmas, and let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it's not quite working for me, but you get the idea. So on this one up here, as you can see, I did change that to a blue to kind of go with the hues of the shirt and what they were wearing, to kind of just make it look like this was specifically designed for that picture. So anyway, you guys have a lot of templates here to play with. I'm not going to do all the others. You can go in and play. You've got, I want to say I did 16, I believe. Yep, there's a total of 16 different templates you can play with. Bringing in your own images and customizing everything from the fonts to the colors to the graphics you use. Majority of these are holiday. You've got some Christmassy-ish, and as well as some Hanukkah options in here. So I hope you guys have fun. I enjoyed making these, and I can't wait. Please tag me, by the way, if you do make any of these holiday photos. Tag me on Twitter. It's at MIMG1225 is my Twitter account. Tag me on there. I'd love to see what you guys create.